Hello, everyone. We welcome you to the second part of the three-part exam prep series on Microsoft Dynamics 365 Fundamentals, Customer Engagement Apps, CRM, MB910. I'm Monica from TechnoFocus, and I will be serving as your moderator today. We're glad to have E.Y. Kalman with us, who will be presenting today's session. He is a Microsoft certified trainer and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. He is currently based in the UK. So let me now hand it over to our presenter. Kalman, the floor is yours now.
Welcome to the Microsoft Dynamics 365 exam prep for the MB910 exam, Dynamics 365 Fundamentals for CRM. So we're now going to take a look at the third module, which is the third of the 5 core customer engagement applications, and this is Microsoft Dynamics 365 for customer service. And we're going to take a look through how customer service works and the application for it. So let's start off by taking a look at what customer service actually is. So by using Dynamics 365 for customer service, what we're able to do is we're able to enter and track customer issues by creating case records. Customer has an issue, we can create a case record with the details of the customer in and the details of the issue in there as well. We're also able to manage and record all interactions around case records. So we've talked about activities and activity timelines for marketing and for sales. It's available in customer service as well. On the case we have an activity timeline, we're able to put in phone calls and emails and tasks and appointments as well and associated. So overall, when we're dealing with a customer case, which could be something with support for instance, we're able to see what's happened during that. We can use knowledge articles. Knowledge articles essentially things like FAQs, frequently asked questions, or items around how to handle a specific scenario. And when something happens with a customer and we want to share that experience with other people, we can create knowledge articles so that if somebody else has a similar issue, they can search the knowledge base to see what has happened and what steps they should take. If we think about specific products, take a printer for instance, something's happened with a printer or people are having problems with a specific printer configuration, that could be saved as a knowledge article. And then if a different customer contacts our organization in 2 months' time, with the same printer, same issue, somebody else would be able to look it up and be able to fulfill the customer needs for it. We're able to create queues and route cases through to the right channels because, again, if we think of large organizations, multiple different types of products and services, you want to go through to the right customer support agent who can help you with your issue. You don't want to go just to a generic one and then be passed around. So we can route cases through to specific queues based on pre-qualifying questions, for instance, or information that they've provided. We're also able to create and track service levels through service level agreements or SLAs. So how long has it taken to respond? Normally a company organization would say we will respond within, say, 24 hours or 72 hours. And we can track that to confirm that we are indeed falling within our KPIs, around our key performance indicators. We can manage performance and productivity through reports and dashboards. We're able to participate in chats using omni-channel support. Customers aren't just calling in, they're not just emailing us, they may engage with us through things like WhatsApp, through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through other channels as well. And we don't want to have separate teams. Each team, one team for social, one team for email, one team for phone. We want to enable our customer support, our customer service agents holistically across all sorts of channels, and omnichannel is for that as well. And then we can manage those conversations across that. So the core element is the customer service hub, or for omnichannel capabilities would be the omnichannel hub for it. So we're able to analyze all of the interactions. We're able to perform analytics on this. We're able to see how the response have gone. Is there something that we're falling over with? We could do better in it. We can pick it up. What's our response time to people? How can we do better in that? Are there certain times of the day or the week or the year in which we could do better at them in terms of response that we may be overloaded at a seasonal point in the year with queries from customers? So let's go and take a look at some of the terminology around customers. So as we can see from this image, right, we have a specific customer who has a support agreement with the organization, entitles them to open 15 cases with the organization during a predefined time period. This could be a week, this could be a month, this could be a quarter, this could be a year. So, based on their support agreement, the customer can open new cases from multiple channels. They could do this over the phone. They could do this from a mobile device. They could do it through social media, through email, or through chat. For example, they can send an email, in this case, that's requesting support. So to better serve customers as the email is received by the system, case creation rules examine the email to identify who it came from and examine the content of the email to create a case record for the customer in the customer service application. After a case record is created, routing rules then examine criteria on the case to automatically route the case to the most appropriate queue. So in our example, because it's a gold customer, it would route the case to a dedicated gold queue for cases that are submitted by gold customers. Also, because the customer is a gold customer, we have a service level agreement in place and determines that an agent must make initial contact with the customer within 15 minutes of the case being created. So this starts off the SLA for it. A support agent who has access to the gold queue takes the case from the queue, assigns it to themselves, and is now responsible to be able to go ahead and resolve the case. Within the case record, case resolution business process flows provide guidance to the agent when they work through resolving the case. Just as we saw with the sales process, there is the sales business process flow. We also have a customer service business process flow on cases. And by using the organization's knowledge base, the agent can find knowledge articles that could contain potential resolutions to the case. From within the case record, they can then email this knowledge base article directly to the customer to resolve the case. And then the customer's entitlement record that stores their support agreement is updated to reflect that out of 15 entitlements that they have, they now have 14 remaining on their entitlement with it. So this takes care of the entire support process. We can also make things more automated. We could take a look at the types of queries that come in. We could search for keywords within it, again based on the routing rules. We could have multiple different queues, multiple different product offerings and support offerings for it as well. Again, we can build out the knowledge article base in order to support all of this as much as possible within the system. Now, within Dynamics 365 for customer service, there are several dashboards. There's a Tier 1 dashboard, a Tier 2 dashboard, and of course the table-specific dashboards, which are specific, of course, to the tables that they're in. And this allows both supervisors as well as customer service agents to be able to see the information relevant that's going on, such as the number of cases coming in, number of interactions, the state that the cases are in as well. It allows agents to be able to see the cases that come in and to be able then to open them up, assign them to themselves, to be able to take control of them, to move it forward and handle the cases through the different stage of it. They're able as well to see the timeline on it, as we said, with the activity, and they're able to go through the business process flow. So we look at an example of a life cycle here, for instance, which is around phone call to case life cycle. So somebody, in this case Nancy, places a call for the service and it comes in, and the customer service agent takes this and logs the phone call activity. Phone call activity is then taken, it's converted into a case. We've identified who the customer is and who the contact is. The phone call record is saved within the system itself. There's then a research done into the issue with it. In this case, it's a faulty printer. So we're going to add a 30-minute research task to the case itself. I'm going to use knowledge articles to find appropriate resolutions for it. Once we've found an appropriate resolution, what we can then do is we can move ahead and we can then call Nancy around the resolution to be able to let her know what the resolution is to the problem, provide her with the details and log that phone call. And then finally we can resolve the case. And overall that's 1 hour spent, 2 phone calls each of 15 minutes and 30 minutes in terms of researching the issue. And then we can bill an hour to the customer with it. So this allows us to move through it and is an example of a life cycle for it. Now, in terms of the actual case lifecycle, there are several different ways in which cases can be created. Customers, of course, who need support can submit help requests in many ways. Historically, the most common way was through a phone call, so support agents would create cases manually as they receive calls from customers. So this is the basic concept of how it goes. So a phone call comes in, the support agent will then go ahead and create the case for it. So as it will come in through whichever channel it is, there will be an activity created, and then the data is put into the tables. Alternatively, cases can be created automatically. We can use record creation rules to define the different types of records in the system, and when certain records are created, say phone call activity with certain information specified on it, we can specify the system to then go ahead and automatically create the case for us. So again, this is the other way we can do it. When cases are created, as we've alluded to already, what we're able to do is we're able to go ahead and route it. Now, Dynamics 365 for customer service uses queues to route cases. A queue is essentially a holding container for cases. Organizations typically create multiple queues based on how they would want to route a case. For example, you could create a queue that represents each of the different departments that handles cases. Cases can be routed through to queues in multiple ways. Agents can manually place cases into specific queues, for example. However, if we think of larger organizations which could be taking hundreds or thousands of cases a day, they're probably going to find that process is too large of an inconvenience to have to do it manually. In most cases, in this matter, cases are therefore frequently routed to queues as part of an automated service management process. So, for instance, we could have the concept of gold, silver, and bronze routes. So, customers would be categorized as a gold customer, a silver customer, or bronze customer, and when somebody from the customer would raise a case, it would look at what is the customer categorized as, and based on that would go ahead and route it. So what we can see, for instance, in here is that a gold customer is contacted, therefore it's come in, it's not routed to the general support queue, it's not routed to the silver queue, it's routed through to the gold queue. And the agent picks it up and associates it to their own personal queue to handle the case, deal with the resolution for it. When they've finished the case, it's then released back and it's routed back to the queue. That's if they have resolved it. If they have resolved, the mark is resolved, and of course it's then confirmed as resolved within the system, and no further actions need to take place for it. So we can add to that. Alternatively, we could have queues around products or around services that we're offering as an organization. So there are many different ways in which organizations can specify the creation of cases and how to route them, and this is really based on how the organization handles it. The aim is to be able to support the processes that are in place. Obviously, we can make them more efficient and automate them through the capabilities of Dynamics 365 for customer service. With being able to do that, we can then make things work a lot better, and we can see the analytics based on how it's going, how many cases are coming in, how many are being resolved, how many are waiting in a queue and going outside of our SLAs and KPIs. We're capturing all of that information along the way, and therefore we can report on it to overall make life better for us and for our organization as we go through it, because we can see where the pain points are, and we can then look to address them to make things get better overall. Now, something else we've touched on already is around knowledge management and knowledge articles. So what we have here in this image is an example of the default process that is there with the standard out-of-the-box functionality for creating and using knowledge articles in the Customer Service Hub. So we start off with an article that's been created. So a customer service representative goes and creates an article. They put some information in for a case they're working on, for instance, which they found a resolution for, and they go and create an article. And this then goes into draft state. It's marked as review. Once it's marked as review, somebody who's then got the reviewer functionality, the reviewer role, can pick it up, and they will evaluate the content that's in the article, and then they can either approve or reject the article. Obviously, if they approve it, then the article is great and it contains all the information needed within it and fits it. If it's rejected, it's missing something and needs something changed with it. So if it's rejected, then it's sent back to the original author for edits or updates. So if the reviewer rejects it, it goes back to the original customer service representative within the system and can then change it as necessary, and then that's submitted for review and it goes through a review process again. If the article is approved, then it's published and it's available for consumption, but it's able to be consumed in different ways. So it's able to be viewed within the Dynamics 365 interface overall by anybody who has access to the knowledge base. It's able to be viewed on case records, which are being worked on by other customer service representatives. They can look for knowledge articles, they can do a search for it using keywords to find out if it fits the case that they're working on. It's also available in search, but more importantly, it's able to be put into a company portal. Now this is an internal portal for available, so only internal users would be able then to access it within the system. So that's after it's approved. Now, once a knowledge article has been reviewed and approved, the next stage is to be able to publish it. It can also be translated incidentally as well, so it's possible to do once approved, it can then be translated, etc. But then it can be published. And once published, the article is then available to both internal users, which has been available already, as well as external users to consume when resolving cases or accessing it from a portal. So if there's a self-service portal for customers, we are able to expose knowledge articles on there for customers to self-serve themselves. But the knowledge articles need to be published. They can't just be approved. They need to be published to be able to be visible and accessible for external users accessing via a portal to be able to see and access. Now, one of the benefits of using knowledge articles as well is it's possible to analyze statistics. So how many times people have viewed it, how many times people have marked it as being something that helps them resolve the situation that they are. So it's possible really to see within the system how helpful knowledge articles are overall. And we can see which are the most popular knowledge articles. Maybe it's something that we can then expand and provide more information on and split it out into multiple knowledge articles. Or if there are ones which aren't really being used, we can look at the metrics for it and try to understand why they aren't really being used at all and hopefully make them better. Or if they're actually not relevant anymore, we can then look to retire them. So quite useful for that. So let's go ahead and look at the scenario whereby we're then going to use the knowledge base and knowledge articles to resolve the case. So if we look at this diagram here, what we've got is then the customer, and this is our goal customer, so they contact us and it comes in for support via an email. We're automatically creating that case using the case creation rules, either based on the subject or based on the person or the account that they're associated with, and is then routed to the gold queue. The agent goes ahead and selects the case from the queue and sees the issues and then looks at the knowledge base to be able to find any articles that are relevant for it. So they go ahead and they would use keywords to be able to locate appropriate knowledge articles, and they then find the appropriate knowledge article for it, and they found the resolution. And what they can then do is they can send a link, assuming that the article has been published so it's available externally. It's possible to then email the knowledge base article directly to the customer. So rather than needing to retype it out or copy and paste, the agent is able to send it directly externally to the customer. Again, it has to be published, and then it goes out and then the customer can see the information and be able to resolve it. Now, it doesn't finish there. What also happens in this case is that the agent can then link that article back to the case. So what we're able to do, we're not just able to create knowledge articles within the system and use them internally as well as publish them externally, and we're not only able to look at the analytics, so how many times has it been seen and marked as useful. What we're also able to do is you look at a knowledge article and see how many cases has it been linked to. And we can see not just how many, it's not just an overall number, but we can see the cases that it's linked to. And we can also look at a case specifically and see which knowledge base articles have been linked to it, because there could be multiple knowledge base articles that are relevant for a single case. So we can analyze that within the system, see how it goes better, see which ones are really being used again, and make our lives a lot easier and better through the analytics for it. So we've already mentioned service level agreements, or SLAs. So let's take a bit more of a look at that. SLA is really around to track whether we are meeting our obligations to clients and to customers. Now, different level of customers may have different SLAs in place, and we want to be able to track whether we are meeting them or not. A KPI, key performance indicator, is whether we've met it or we haven't met it. And we could have different KPIs in place per SLA, such as first response and resolution time. Now, these could vary based on the type of customer. So we could, again, using our example, have a sort of a gold tier, which is a very swift response, a silver tier, which is a slightly longer response, and a bronze tier, which is a longer response over and above the silver tier. So bronze tier would take less priority. Essentially, we've got more time to respond to deal with it. Say 8 hours for response, silver could be 4 hours for response, and gold could be 1 hour for response, for the initial response of it. And what we're able to do is, when a case is created, we're able to automatically kick off the tracking for it. So we're able to see where it is within the process. What we're also able to do is we're able to trigger notifications along the way. So we could turn around and say, for instance, if it's a high priority, because it's not just about the type of customer, customers can have low priority, medium priority, and high priority items. So say if it's a high priority item and it needs to be dealt with, first response at least within 1 hour, if it's coming up for 45 minutes in, so it's been 45 minutes and we need to respond by an hour, what we can do is we can generate an alert and we can send an email warning to the case owner to specify them, to let them know that it's approaching the threshold. If it goes more than another 15 minutes, it's going to breach that SLA for it. It's also possible, if it then goes past that, to be able to send warning emails to other people within the company, within an organization, that it's breached the SLA for it, so we get notifications from it. And we can track this across the entire life cycle of it as we need to. Now, off the back of this, what it's possible to do is then again, using analytics, we can see what percentage of time we are falling out or breaching our SLAs and how we are performing with our KPIs, to then be able to see and put in place mitigation actions for it so that we don't do it in the future. So do we need more personnel? Do we need to make a better process? Do we need to streamline things? Do we need to get more information from the customer? For example, are all things that organizations would look at to see if it would work better in order to get it better. So let's take a look at how an SLA would then fit within our process over here. So again, we have the contact that's come in from the customer, and it's gold customer, so the case is auto-created, has gone through to the gold queue, and because it's that gold customer, it's a priority item, it needs a response within 15 minutes, so the SLA clock essentially starts ticking, and when the agent then picks it up and sends that first response within 15 minutes, it's then noted that the SLA has been met, it's been within the tolerance of it, because say they responded within 7 minutes, so they have 15 minutes to respond. We've done it within 7 minutes, so the conditions for the SLA have been reached. And as a result, this is now successful and the case can go through it and can be closed, etc., and we're all very happy with it. So let's now take a look at customer service scheduling. Now, Dynamics 365 for customer service includes a feature called customer service scheduling. And there are several different components that there are within this. So we have resources, and resources can define the specific people, facilities, or equipment that can be scheduled to work on items. Resources could represent internal employees, third-party contractors, facilities, or equipment. We have services. Services represent the services that our organization provides to customers. The service record defines the resource types and number of resources required to complete it. For instance, if we have to go and service a tractor, we may need one service technician who can do that, along with the various tools around it, in order, say, to lift it up or to open it up, etc. Service activities are activity records that represent things like the delivery and execution of a service to a customer. These could include details such as which service is to be delivered and which customer it is for. Facilities and equipment defines the facilities and equipment that might need to be scheduled as part of a service activity. For instance, a facility record could be created to represent a specific service bay or specialized equipment used to complete a job. Once defined, resources that represent these items are created and associated with the facilities and equipment records. Resource categories define the different roles or categories that resources might have within an organization. For example, an organization might create resource categories for positions like developer, consultant, or project manager. The schedule board is an interactive calendar that's used to schedule specific resources for different items. It can be filtered as needed and can be viewed as a map to make it easier to schedule items, so you can see overall what's happening. Business closures can specify when an organization is not open, such as annual holidays and seasonal times of the year. Now, services and service activities are used in conjunction with each other. For example, if we had a garage that wanted to deliver oil changes to customers, they could set it up as follows. They'd need to create an oil change service This would define the type or types and quantities of resources required to deliver an oil change. For example, an oil change might require a service bay, which is an equipment resource, and 2 technicians, which are human resources, to be able to complete it. They need to create a service activity, and the oil change service is added to the activity as the actual service that will be provided as part of the service activity. The service activity record also contains additional details, such as the customer which the activity is being carried out for and where the activity will be taking place. And finally, they need to schedule the service activity. And when the service activity is scheduled, Dynamics 365 will look at the types and quantities of resources required for the attached oil change service and identify which qualified people, facilities and equipment resources are available to complete the service activity, and then it can pull it all together and actually schedule the job. So it's particularly helpful when being able to schedule things when providing services, not so much products, but services and all the items around services, because we need people and we need resources to all come together to provide the service. So we're able to do this and then schedule it appropriately, and we can see it on a Kanban style board whereby we can see everything then available and we can go ahead and schedule it. But customer service is not just about being reactive when things come in. It's also about being proactive, and we have the ability for remote device management. We have connected customer service, and what this does is it helps organizations to be able to remotely monitor, manage and maintain IoT or Internet of Things devices directly from within Dynamics 365 for customer service. So the components that make this up are as follows. We have IoT devices, Internet of Things devices. This is a connected device that can be registered with an IoT hub. We have IoT alerts, and these are alerts that are sent to connected customer service because of a notable event that was logged by the device. So for instance, if it was measuring temperature and it went above the threshold, the IoT device could send an alert. We have the device categories, which are used to group IoT devices together based on similarities, such as the type of device. And we have IoT device commands, and these are an outgoing message that is sent from Dynamics 365 Connected Customer Service to the devices, to the IoT devices that are connected to an IoT hub. So for instance, to provide updated parameters, we could send it out for it. So let's take a look at how this would actually work. We have a nice little flow diagram. So the first thing we need to do is we would need to go ahead and create an asset, a customer asset record. So we do this within Dynamics 365 Customer Service. When we've done that, we get an IoT device record created, and the customer asset is registered as an IoT device, which uses automation software such as Power Automate to register the device in an IoT management solution such as Azure IoT Central or IoT Hub. Once it's been registered, the IoT device record is created within Dynamics 365 and is then associated to the customer. It then carries out whatever function needs to carry out. So for instance, it's monitoring temperature and it's got thresholds and it knows what the thresholds are, and say the temperature goes above the threshold. So the IoT device would report an anomaly, and this is logged in an IoT management solution such as Azure IoT Central or IoT Hub. And off the back of this, an alert is sent through to connected customer service. And it's logged as an IoT alert related to the device using automation software such as Power Automate. And it's stored against the IoT device record, so we can look at all of the IoT devices and we can see all of the alerts that a specific device has registered. Once the alert is in, we then can interact with it. So for instance, if we believe that it's faulty, we could send a reset command to it from connected customer service. Now, in scenarios where the device cannot be interacted with, we can escalate the alert into a case and or work order in field service. So this allows us to be able to be proactive in what we're doing. We can have the IoT devices that can register alerts if there are issues with it, and based on that, what can then come back is we can set cases to be able to resolve the case, or even raise work orders for field service technicians to go out and address whatever issue is happening to be able to do it. So this gets the customer experience to be extremely good because they don't have to raise cases anymore. They don't have to raise support requests or issues It's done automatically through it. There is the automation put in place using the IoT devices and everything else around it to be able to do it. And we can then hopefully prevent major malfunctions or major issues occurring by carrying out the maintenance and support earlier on. We don't need to come to a point whereby everything fails and then we need to pick it up and deal with it. If something knows that it's going to be failing at some point in the future and is already registering that now, then we can go ahead and we can fix the situation right now, which makes life a lot better overall for everybody involved. So that's one way in which we can empower customers. Now, another way that we can empower customers is using omnichannel for customer service, and I've mentioned this earlier on in this series. Obviously, customers can contact us. They can phone, they can email, etc. And traditionally, large organizations are dealing with, that have a social media team, that have a phone support team, that have an email support team, that have various teams around. But what we have now is omnichannel for customer service. And the omnichannel solution provides us with the tools to be able to allow multiple channels to stream through into a single place, into a single interface. So traditionally, again, customer service agents, you had different teams, they were using different systems, and therefore they needed to be able to interact with the systems to know how to use it, which required training. And if a system was changed, it required new training up to date. Every single system would be different, and pulling all the systems together would be complicated. So the benefits of omnichannel is that it all comes through, doesn't matter which channel it's from, and it all comes through into a single interface. So agents don't need to be cross-trained on multiple systems. They're using that same system, regardless of whether communication is coming in via WhatsApp or via Facebook or via a variety of other systems as well. It enables not just that, but also things like SMS, so text messages. Customers who want to interact with us with text messages, again, it will come through into that same interface, so it's able to be there. Social media, other sorts of channels, the capabilities are expanding over time. It also allows things like real-time notifications, so if a chat comes in, an agent is notified, gets a pop-up at the bottom of the screen that's there. Agents can handle multiple chats. If they're waiting for the customer for right information, depending on their capabilities and their capacity, they could be handling multiple support chats at the same time. We're able to use Power Virtual Agents, so intelligent chatbots. Customers can self-serve through it, and if it doesn't give all the information they need, it can offer them the ability to escalate to an agent, and it would escalate it through and integrate with omnichannel for customer service. Agents can follow scripts to present the same experience to customers every single time and can follow through it. And the ability to use things like quick responses as well, whereby agents don't need to type out things again and again and again. We have standardized responses that all agents are able to use within the system. So omnichannel for customer service is extremely powerful and one of the newer capabilities, but is really empowering organizations and empowering their customers to be able to go ahead and support them in the best possible way. As interactions come in, cases are created, we can provide knowledge base articles back to the customer. We can search for them, we can use keywords, we can associate knowledge base articles with the case, we can capture information. We have that same Dynamics 365 interface, and therefore based on that, what we're able to do is we're able to open account records and contact records and all the other types of records we need as well in order to support the case, and then we can update the case directly within the omnichannel for customer service experience and close off the case as necessary. Very, very powerful, very, very helpful. Now, omnichannel for customer service is its own app, but what we also have, the general one, is the customer workspace app. So if we take a look at the customer workspace, what happens is this combines the session management capabilities of omnichannel with very much the core case management and knowledge management capabilities found in the traditional customer service hub application. So let's take a look at some of the key capabilities that are available for it. We have session management. Session tabs allow the agents to work with multiple customers simultaneously. This allows them to increase their efficiency and switch between sessions as they are working with customers without losing conversation context or customer details. We have case management. We can create cases. We can route them and manage them in the customer service workspace using the same features that are available in the customer service hub. So include things like activity, so the interactions with the customer. We can create activities, we can associate them with cases. We have queues available, so we're able to route cases through queues as we need. We have the record creation and update rules. These are the rules that can be applied to different activity types that automatically create other types of Dynamics 365 records. And we have routing rules, which are applied to cases that automatically route a case to a specific queue or user. We have knowledge management available to be able to search the knowledge base, along with entitlements and SLAs. Entitlements, of course, are used to specify the amount of support services that a customer is entitled to. It's essentially really a support contract. And SLAs, of course, are the way of tracking and defining what should happen when a case is opened, and such as, initial time to respond, etc. So very helpful to have within the interface. It is slightly different from the omnichannel app, and works in a slightly different way. Now, we've been looking at all of the capabilities, and just as we went through marketing and sales, and we looked at the insights into it, we have customer service insights as well, which are available. And again, are very, very powerful and driven by AI underneath. So, customer service insights provide organization with actionable insights into the critical performance metrics, operational data, and emerging trends from the customer service system. It includes things like different built-in dashboards, interactive charts, and visual filters that can provide insight into the support operations data across different channels. It can also help highlight improvement areas that can have the greatest impact on the organization, so we can quickly evaluate and respond to key performance indicators, KPIs, and customer satisfaction levels. And all of this is driven by AI analytics underneath. Customer service insights include things like workspaces, so displaying customer service data of a specific customer service environment. A single customer service insights instance can contain multiple workspaces. We have insight dashboards. These are filterable dashboards that group together both graphical and AI-driven charts into a single space based on different key performance indicators. And we have topics, which group related support cases together for easier analysis. Topics are used throughout the different insights dashboards that are available. So at a glance, the 5 items on the navigation pane that we have are the home, which takes us to our main landing page experience, and includes the workspace information such as the cases imported and topics discovered. We have the KPI summary, which provides a broad overview of the customer service experience in our organization. New cases provides an overview of new cases in the customer service system. Customer satisfaction provides an overview of customer satisfaction scores, or CSATs. Resolutions provides an overview of the customer service system's case resolution performance. So are we resolving cases over time? Are there specific cases of not resolving, etc.? And topics provides a detailed overview of key performance indicators for a specific topic. So all very, very useful, very, very capable. It's there, all the analytics underneath for all of the 5 core customer engagement applications are there to be able to help organizations really understand their data and to be able to improve and get better at it. So this concludes the 3rd module around Microsoft Dynamics 365 for customer service. So we're now going to move on to module 4. And module 4 is the 4th of the 5 core customer engagement applications for Dynamics 365. And more specifically, it is Microsoft Dynamics 365 for field service. So what exactly do we mean by field service? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at this. So if we think of organizations that provide services and products, some of these in terms of products will be able to just sell the products to the customers and we'll ship it out to them, or we'll have online shops, they can purchase it and we send them out. If they've got a problem, they'll send it back to us. We can supply services. We could supply advisory services. We could supply things like accountancy, for instance, which is not necessarily an advisory service. It is a service, so we could be their accountants, in which case we're dealing with, all their accounts, we're filing all the necessary paperwork, etc., etc. And that's fine. Not a problem. Again, it's a service. We don't necessarily need to travel to them to do it. They can upload it to the cloud. We can get the documentation. They can use finance systems, etc. But there are organizations which provide services which require people to go out into the field, so to speak. We need remote technicians, remote engineers, remote service people. And field service is used to describe this. It's a service that's done outside of the company facilities. Because, of course, as an organization, we could have many different facilities and different repair facilities that we have products come into. But we will need, if we're providing certain services, certain products, to travel to client locations and perform servicing and repair there. And this is what field service is about. So some examples of this are the manufacturing industry. So for instance, if we are manufacturing health equipment, medical equipment, and we're selling these to hospitals and we have support contracts in place, what we can do is we can use field service applications to manage maintenance services over the lifetime of the machines and the products that we have supplied. If we think of the utility sector, one wouldn't think particularly of utilities as something, you get your electricity, it comes through the wall, you plug into it. If you've got a problem with your home wiring, the electric company doesn't send out an engineer to fix it for you. You need to get an electrician in to deal with it, which could possibly be field service as well. But in terms of things like field service in the utility space, if they're needing to lay new cable, say for instance you've got a communications company and they need to put a new fiber optic cable, or there's been a problem, as I know has happened several times, the local authority is doing roadworks and they're digging up the road, and by mistake, they cut through the cables, whether it's electric, whether it's water. Gas obviously is much more of a problem for that, I guess, because there could be an explosion. The phone cables and stuff like that. And in that case, the utility company needs to be able to go and fix it at that location. It's a field service item. If we think of things like the healthcare industry, for instance, we may be dispatching healthcare workers to administer medicine and other care to patients who are too unwell to travel into, say, hospitals or main facilities. We may have mobile healthcare workers who would go and take care of them, like the elderly or the infirm. And general equipment maintenance. If we're going out, and again, just like as I said in the manufacturing space, when we're manufacturing equipment and we're supporting that, but we may not manufacture items, we may support it. So for instance, if we think of washing machines, we could be, and I'm using this example because this happened to me recently, my washing machine broke down. I have a service contract in place with a company. They don't sell washing machines. All they do is they provide fixing. So they had to dispatch a field service engineer to my house to be able to go ahead. They brought the products out, they diagnosed what was wrong with it, and they fixed the washing machine, and my family was really happy because we were able to use it again. So these are some of the examples. There are many, many other sectors that it's possible to use as well as an example for field service, but these are some of the examples that we can use around it. And if you think about what your own organizations are doing, think about, are you providing facilities? Are you providing services at your facilities, or are you needing to go out into the field and into client locations or other places to be able to deliver your services around them? So we're going to take a look at some key terminology around it. So in field service, we have these items. So we have field technicians, and a field technician refers to the person or people who are performing the work or carrying out the services for customers in the field. They're the field service engineer. The washing machine repairman, he would be referred to in Dynamics 365 as a field technician. We have work orders, and work orders specify the work that needs to be carried out by the field technician. So the work order will include customer details, so the customer name, the customer phone number, the service location, so where the field technician is actually going to go to, the appointment day and time, and as well, if applicable, the customer asset. So in the case of me, for instance, the washing machine with the washing machine make, model and serial number, because I've reported that all in when I called with the fault. And that's all on the work order. The work order is everything that the field technician needs in order to know what they're going to need to do, where they're going to need to do it, and who they're going to need to deal with. And this is important because if, for instance, they need to bring tools along or they need to bring replacement parts, they need to know what they're going to bring for, because they can't carry everything in their van. So they need to know exactly what they need in order to get it ready and bring it with them. Customer assets refer to a piece of equipment that is owned and located at a customer location. So these could be things like appliances and pieces of equipment. Farm machinery, for instance, would be a customer asset. A dispatcher or scheduler. This is a very critical role in field service. They oversee field technicians and they're responsible for scheduling field technicians and dispatching them to execute the work orders. So they see when they're available and they'll handle the calendar and make sure that everyone is available at the right time, and they'll schedule them in accordingly. As well, you're not going to have somebody start at one side of the country in the morning and go to the other side of the country for a job in the afternoon. They wouldn't be able to get there, regardless of how large or small the country is, probably. So what they need to do is they need to see where the field technicians are based, what is the most applicable jobs to them, how they can route them effectively, etc. The first time fix rate, or the FTFR, is the resolution of a customer's issue on the first service visit. Now, organizations, of course, strive for a very high number here because it means that they don't need to go back. Reduced visits in turn result in reduced costs, higher profitability, higher customer satisfaction, and of course, higher productivity. The last thing we want is this technician to have to go out multiple times to fix it. Ideally, they should have all the information they need, all the tools, any replacement parts that they need, fix it the first time that they're on site, that they do not need to come back. The ETA is the estimated time of arrival. This is the estimated time that a field technician is expected to arrive at the location or customer site to begin work. Truck roll is referring to a situation that requires the technician to be sent in a truck to the customer for service. This could be because of the amount of material that they need, the number of replacement parts, or special tooling possibly that's present in the trucks, which is not possible to take otherwise. And windshield time refers to the amount of time that a field technician spends in a vehicle while performing activities relating to service customers. So this isn't talking about they're actually fixing it. This is things like paperwork or commuting between places. We want to keep this as low as possible. Increased windshield time impacts utilization, so organizations really do look to keep this as low as possible so that as much time as possible is, of course, spent by the field technician in actually getting the work done and carried out. So let's now go take a look at a typical life cycle. And regardless of the industry, it's almost always the same. There could be some slight tweaks for very specialized parts, but essentially this is what it looks like. The first thing is demand generated. This is the trigger that creates the work order for it. So as we said, work orders include all the information, so who it's for, the products and or services, the timeframes and the location, and are generated in various ways. So for instance, a work order could be generated with an item being purchased. You need a field technician to install a piece of machinery. So the customer would buy the machinery, and immediately a work order could be generated for a technician to have to go out and install the machinery. Or if we have devices, and we spoke previously about Internet of Things, IoT devices, if a device automatically notifies of an issue, it could create a work order off the back of that. And based on that, we're then able to create that work order so the field technician can go out and will be able to fix whatever the problem is. And of course, we have customers who will call up to report the issue themselves, or they may not call up, they may send in an email, absolutely fine, and we'll create work orders off that. So that's how the demand is generated. This is how work orders are created. We then have the schedule and dispatch. We take the work orders and we're going to schedule them in. We're going to look at the availability of our field technicians. We're going to look at what the days currently look like in their calendars. Again, where the jobs are located to ensure that we can optimize their route as best as possible for the area that they are in. And we're going to go and schedule all of this. And we schedule it in advance. Of course, there can be last minute work orders, but normally scheduling will take place a day to possibly a week or several weeks in advance. If we think of installing heavy machinery, the customer's not going to buy it today and necessarily expect it to be installed tomorrow. I mean, they may expect it to be installed tomorrow, but we know the reality of this. It's likely to say, you buy it today, and in 2 weeks' time, we have a slot whereby we can then deliver and install it. And they would work with the customer to work this out. So they would schedule it in. Scheduling can occur manually or even automatically based on scheduling rhythms. Field service has the ability to automatically schedule various items, and then they're dispatched. The field technician would then go out on the appropriate day with the information they need, with any resources they need with them, and carry it out. Service completion is when the technician is actually executing delivery of the service at the location. So it's where they're going to fix something or they're going to install something and they're going to log time. Typically, The technician will have a mobile device with an application running on it to assist them in doing the work. This will include the work order on it and will allow them, for instance, to make additional notes and take pictures or look up additional information. Some of them have cameras in which they can scan serial numbers and barcodes to gain additional information, or possibly even to carry out advanced diagnostics. So they will then go ahead and they will actually carry out and complete the service. The review and sign-off stage is when the work is complete, the customer needs to sign off. I'm sure we've all had it. Somebody, come out to our house to fix something and they say, right, we finished. Please, can I get your signature on it to confirm that it's been done? It's when the customer approves the work. Obviously, the customer can review the work and then will sign off to accept the work that's being done. And the item will go through a final internal review before being marked as complete, just to check that all of the necessary paperwork and steps have been done, and that's done internally once the customer signed it off. Having the ability for the field technician to have a mobile device with mobile application means that even when they're out in the field, as long as, of course, if they've got network connectivity, the customer signs it off and they can immediately go back into the system, and whatever else in the process may happen is able to be kicked off before the technician returns to the office. And finally, we have the back office support. So the back office will take all the information provided from the field and can then go ahead and invoice the customer. They can also see the parts that were used during the service, and then they can replenish parts, they can submit payroll hours and reimburse expenses, such as the fuel that's needed, or if there was an overnight hotel stay, because the technician needed to stay away because they were too far away and they need to do that, they can then deal with the expenses around it. So this is the general life cycle that field service items would go through, and again, as I said, mostly it will remain the same with possibly some slight tweaks, but it does really look the same across all industries. So how do we get started with field service? So we have some key terminology in here, some of which we've touched on already, but let's take a further look at it. So we start off with work orders. These are the primary record type that's used in Dynamics 365 field service. It specifies important information such as who the work is for, so the customer, all the customer details, where it should be performed, so the location that it's going to take place, what needs to be done, so what the technician is actually going to need to do, such as fix a washing machine, the skills required, as it could be a specialized job that the technician needs to do, so we need to have a technician with the appropriate skill level for it, and timelines, when it's supposed to be carried out. We'll then have work order products, and these define the products that will be used on the work order. They typically represent items that could be installed, such as an appliance, or items that will be used during the process, such as, for instance, if you're putting a specialized appliance in place, you may need a special type of electric cord to connect the appliance in. So all of these would be the work order products. Separately, we then have work order services. And this is to define services that are being carried out as part of the work order. For instance, when we're installing a new appliance, we may give the customer the option for us to remove the old appliance. So if we're installing a new washing machine, normally, at least where I am, they will say, okay, we'll charge you a small amount and we will take your old washing machine away. So they're not installing the old washing machine, they're going to charge a fee. It's going to be a service for it. They're providing a service, they're taking the old one away, and they will charge a small fee from it. So this is an example of something that could be considered a work order service. And then we have service tasks. This sort of acts as a to-do list for the field technician who will be performing the work. It ensures that they're not missing anything during the process. For example, if we think of installing a washing machine, which is I think a really great example, we could put things like connect the plug into the electricity and turn it on, confirm that the washing machine turns on. Check the hose connections to ensure that there are no water leaks with the hoses that are in use. So all of these will be tasks, and these can be put in so the technician can then see it and work through. It's essentially their checklist of what they need to do. If there are additional tasks, the technician can of course add additional tasks as necessary, but this is sort of their initial checklist that they would need to run through and can be tweaked and modified as necessary. And finally, we have the incident. Incident acts as a template to pre-populate information into a work order to save time during the intake process. And incident is the system name. What incident really is incident is a case. We talked about cases when we were looking at customer service. So it is possible, if you have customer service, Dynamics 365 customer service and Dynamics 365 field service, when you take information in for something that will require a technician to handle and deal with, you can convert a case into a work order. And what it will do is it will then populate information from the case into the work order, which cuts down on the number of manual data entry that you need to do and saves time during the initial process. It also links it back. So if a customer raises an issue, my washing machine is faulty or is leaking, that would be a case for customer service. A work order will be created out of it for a field technician. Field technician go away. He's got the work order. He's got the work order steps to do and the service tasks on it, and can then close it down, and then customer service can see that it's been carried out and close the case. There is the entire loop available for it. Let's continue taking a look at then how it goes. So this is how a work order is entered. So once a work order is entered, we then have lots of work orders within the system, and we need to schedule it. So we have this schedule board, sort of Kanban style board available. It shows the calendar, it shows all of our resources available that are available for it. It shows the time frame for the day. It's a bit like an Outlook calendar, I guess, but shows it across lots of different people, and we can move things around in it. And it provides the tool that's necessary to manage and schedule resources to work on it. So we have resources. A resource can be a person, such as a field technician. It could be a piece of equipment, such as some specific tooling, or facility, a service bay, for instance, that can be scheduled to perform work. Dynamics 365 Field Service gives several different types of resources that can be defined. There's a generic resource, which is usually used as a placeholder to define a type of resource that is needed until a specific named resource can be used in its place. So say this needs 2 field technicians. We don't know who those field technicians are actually going to be. They're going to be Bob and Jim in the end. We don't know now that it's Bob and Jim, so they're considered a generic resource. We have a contact, which is a specific resource that's associated with a Dynamics 365 contact record. This wouldn't be a user, this would be somebody external to our organization. Say somebody needs to be there, the site manager needs to be there to open up for us to be able to access the site. We have a user type. This is a resource as an internal user that's mapped to a Dynamics 365 user record. So this would be a field technician, usually. We have equipment, which defines the resource as a specific piece of equipment. Say, for instance, if we're going out to deal with farm machinery, we may need a hydraulic lift in order to lift the machinery up. We have account, which defines a resource associated with the Dynamics 365 account record. We have something called crew, and this represents multiple resources that can be scheduled together for a single item. So if we think, for instance, of road repairs, we need various people to carry out the road repairs. They can be set up as a crew, so we don't need to go and schedule each person in that group individually. We can set them up as a crew within the system, and then we can schedule the crew, so everybody involved in the crew can then be scheduled out at once. We have facility, which represents a facility to be scheduled, such as a building or room or an equipment bay or a service bay. And finally we have pool, which is a pool of resources, so a bit like crew, but crew refers specifically to people. A pool represents a much larger pool of resources altogether. So we have those different types. We can specify requirements. So these represent items that are ready to be scheduled that have not been assigned to a specific resource. They define what is needed to schedule it, such as resource skills, timeframes, and location details. We have bookings, which are items that have been scheduled for a specific day and time and have been assigned to a resource. So it starts off, essentially, we have the work orders and they're unscheduled, and then we can see the requirements for them, we can see the schedule board, and then we'll go ahead and we get them booked in, so that's there. We also have the scheduling assistant, and this uses artificial intelligence. It simplifies scheduling by offering suggestions of potential resource and time slots to schedule an item for. It's based on requirements that are captured on the work order record, such as the skill needed, time windows, and a variety of other things too. So all of this works to be able to go ahead, take work orders into our system, get the information that we need for them, schedule them appropriately with all the different resources that we need in place, so that we can go and we can deliver the actual service to the customer. Let's go ahead and take a look at actual work orders within the system itself. So we have some key information that's defined on here. We have a summary overview, which is general information such as the work order type, So what type of work order? Is it a service? Is it a fix? Is it something else? What the current status is of it. So is it in draft? Has it been scheduled? Is it in progress? Has it been completed? Pricing information, such as how much it's going to cost, and of course, who the work order is for. We have the scheduling details, which has more detailed information that could impact how it's scheduled, such as the priority, the territory, service preferences. Perhaps we can only access a site in the morning somewhere. If it's a low priority, it could be dealt with within the next week. If it's a high priority, it would need to be dealt with today. So these work off things like date and time windows for it. We have the products, which says the products that are going to be used or installed during the execution of the work order. Once the work order is complete, the parts are then removed from our inventory. We have services, which define any services that are going to be completed on the work order. So, for instance, in our washing machine example, this could include things like a disposal service or a recycling fee. We have the service tasks, which act as the to-do list for the technician and outline what they need to carry out whilst working on site. And of course, we have the address and location information, and this is used to assist in the shading process because, again, we want to optimize it as much as possible for the technicians. They should be going to jobs that are as close to each other as possible. They don't have to spend a lot of time driving, potentially stuck in traffic. We also have account relationships from the work order. So we have a service account, and the service account is the account that the work is being done for. We also have the billing account, and this specifies the account that's responsible for paying and where the invoice should be sent. Now, this could potentially be the same. These could be the same, or these could be different. If you think of large organizations, we're going to bill to one specific place, although the service is actually taking place in another location, and possibly for a different related company. But so we have the ability to split it out as we need. We have the work order type. And the work order type is used to categorize the type of work that it is. Again, what type of work is the technician carrying out? The priority rates the importance of the work order. So is it a high priority? Is it medium priority? Is it a low priority? If there's a water pipe broken in the road, that's a high priority. If it's, I've ordered a washing machine and it's going to be installed within the next 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, that's probably a lower priority item. I mean, it's high priority to me because I need to have my washing machine installed, but it's a lower priority item overall. And we have the service territory, and this can help organize work orders and resources by geographical areas. So possibly we have country or located split up into geographic areas, the North region, the East region, the West region, the South region, more of them, less of them. And we'll have technicians that are assigned to each region, so we need to know essentially where the job is located in order to work out who we can associate with it. And we have service preferences. Service preferences has, for instance, things like the time that we promised to deliver. So it's the time window that a customer's promised that the technician would arrive. So I think I'll say we'll be there between 9 and 11 o'clock in the morning. Now, if we have promised a time window, it takes higher priority over all other date and time preferences because we've communicated this to the customer and we've essentially said to the customer, we will be there then. It looks very bad for us. It's not good customer service if we turn up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, especially if we haven't communicated it. We have dates for window start and window end, so we can provide a range of dates so the customer would like somebody to work on the incident, so they can say, I'm available in 2 weeks' time because the site won't be ready until then, for example. And we have fulfillment preferences. And fulfillment preferences provide additional scheduling options around how we can actually fulfill the work order. So let's go back to the life cycle of the work order and let's go take a look at how we can then start fitting this along the way. So where we started off, the work order creation. Now we've seen this already, the process overall for it. So when we have a work order creation, we could have a case that's come in. So work orders are usually created from cases or even from opportunities. And that's done in that work order creation point. We have an agreement, we are going to be working on it, we communicate this to the customer, and what happens is that this goes through the process. The work order is then scheduled out. It's then dispatched. The field technician is dispatched at the appropriate point in time with the details they need, with all the products and other things else they need in order to deliver the service. They go and they carry out the service. They update the details. It's reviewed internally to say that it's approved, And then finally, we have an invoice generated off the back of that, and we can adjust our inventory because if they've used three hoses, we have 3 hoses less in our inventory, so we need to know about this so that we can order new hoses, for instance, for us. So I've mentioned incident types, and we have different incident types within the system. Now, incidents in Dynamics 365 Field Service can best be described as templates, and they are used to easily populate items such as tasks and products and service definitions on issues that are commonly worked on by field agents. Incidents are a great way of auto-populating the information listed, but any of these can be manually added at any time. So if I think, for instance, incident type would be installing washing machine, they're going to need to know to bring hoses out. They're going to need to bring some wrenches in order to be able to connect the hoses. They may need some other equipment as well. Probably not much equipment. But what it's possible to do, it's possible to auto-populate the required products, the required services on there, so that we don't need to manually enter it each time and time again. Because the last thing we want in an organization is for them to have to manually enter essentially what is the default checklist for each incident type. So what we can do is we can set all of these up as static data in the system, and then when we create a work order, when we set the incident type for it, it will then start setting all of this information across it. It's very helpful, especially if we think of highly specialized tasks and scenarios. If we've got highly complex equipment, say it's an MRI scanner for a hospital, you're going to need somebody with the right skills, a very skilled field service technician, to be able to go out and do that. They're going to need probably a lot of specialist equipment. And rather than having to manually go through and put it in, what we can do is we can set up all in the system so we don't need to worry that we may miss something out by mistake. Now, apart from work orders and incidents, so if something's gone wrong and we need to fix it and support it, for Dynamics 365 Field Service, we also have inspections. And inspections are easy to handle and deal with. They're easier to create, easy to fill out. We're going to inspect a piece of machinery, we're going to check it, so we probably will not need all of the products, all of the tools and equipment that we need in order to fix something. It's much lighter. It's also possible to run inspections through the Dynamics 365 Field Service mobile app. And one thing that's really important about this is the app is available across all devices, and it's offline first. This means that it doesn't need an internet connection. If we think of field technicians who are going out into the field, there are times when they will not have network connection and they will not be able to connect into Dynamics 365 into the cloud and be able to get the information that they need. The Dynamics 365 Field Service mobile app has been built specifically to handle scenarios such as that. So it connects occasionally, pulls the data to the device for all the work orders that the technician is assigned to, and then keeps it offline. So it's got all the information there for the field technician to be able to view and see. And not just view and see, but they can update the record, and then when they get network connectivity at some point, it will then push the data back into the cloud. So it's then able to be seen by other users within Dynamics 365 Field Service. Within the app as well, it's possible to be able to see a list of customer assets, manage the versions of customer assets as well, and a variety of other things. So it is offline only, and technicians can, for instance, take pictures and attach them to the work order, and the app will then upload it. Very, very helpful, very, very useful. Now, one of the things that we will need to know for the exam is the scheduling capabilities. And as mentioned already, we have 3 different options available. We have manual scheduling, which will have dispatchers looking at a list of work orders that are ready to go out, and they'll be using the scheduling board, see the resources, and they'll be able to do that manually. We have the scheduling assistant, which can suggest when to schedule. It won't actually schedule it, but it can suggest it looks like this time slot is free, and therefore it will go, will suggest to the dispatcher that they should be able to put the work order into there. But we also have optimize or automated scheduling, which is something that we can activate for the system. And what this will do is this will take a look at the work orders, all the information associated to things like the location of the work orders, where they're supposed to carry out, the products needed, the skills needed, take a look at who's available, the equipment available, and then will automatically schedule it accordingly. This does use artificial intelligence underneath to be able to look at it and work out what is best. And the thing with automated scheduling is it can move things around to fit things better as needed. Obviously, if a technician is already on the way to go visit a specific customer location to deal with a work order, it's not going to change that to 2 weeks down the line, but it will look several days into the future, and it will optimize things accordingly as best it can see to do. Now, when looking at a work order, we need to think about, is it ready to be scheduled? Does it have all the information needed on it? What resources do we need to schedule it? We need people, we need locations, we need equipment, a variety of other stuff. It is, in terms of fixing a road, maybe it needs a crew of people, for instance, for it. Who is qualified to work on the item? We can't just send anyone out. Again, if we think of an MRI scanner for a hospital, we need somebody with the skills to be able to deal with the MRI scanner. So we're not just going to send somebody who started 2 weeks ago and is an apprentice technician, because that would not be appropriate for it. So this is how we use skills. When does it need to be done? Do we have any specific time frames? Do we have any time restrictions or time windows for it? So we see when that is available. Customer constraints. Customer may not be around. The site may not be ready for it yet. If we're delivering machinery to install, but the site isn't ready for us to go ahead and install it yet, well, that's a customer constraint, which the customer obviously needs to communicate to ourselves. Where is it located in terms of the geography? Is it somewhere far away and we don't have any technicians in the area yet? So we need to work out how we get a technician into the area to be able to actually carry out the service. And finally, of course, cancellations, which do happen from time to time. The customer may need to cancel the appointment. So in that case, we then need to move things around. We may need to reschedule it. And this is where the optimized and automated scheduling comes into place, because if we've got it booked in and the customer calls up and says, I'm terribly sorry, but I'm not going to be able to make it then, I'm not going to be able to be there, or there's another problem, the road is flooded, so you can't get into it, what it will do is it then automatically rebook it at an appropriate point in time. So very, very helpful for this. So when we schedule in, of course, as mentioned, we have to think about what types of resources, and we want to be able to schedule qualified resources. Now again, these could be specific people, specific technicians, specific facilities, or specific equipment. And the option of scheduling resources have resource roles and resource skills. Resource roles specifies roles, a single role or multiple roles in an organization that can be associated with different resources. Roles can be added to specific resources and schedulable items like a work order to ensure that only resources with that role are suggested as people to work on an item. We also have resource skills, and this specifies a specific skill or possibly a certification that can be associated with different resources. Resource skills can also be used to support specific scenarios where resources may need to possess specific access to something, like a building, or need a specific level of security clearance. So these are similar, but are also different. In terms of roles, maybe we want somebody more senior. They don't need to be certified, whereas in terms of skills, we may need somebody to be very familiar with an MRI machine or piece of farm machinery. So we would associate those specific skills with the person, and then we can look to book them in. In terms of working with the schedule board itself, so we've seen the schedule board, so we've talked about manually scheduling items, using the assistant to suggest when to schedule it, and being able to automatically schedule items as well. But it's a bit like an Outlook calendar, because what we can do is we can drag and drop items around to allow dispatchers to schedule items or substitute different resources. It's possible to drag and drop appointments around on the calendars for the resources, and then it fits in if it's not available, and it will tell you if it overlaps. You will be able to easily see it visually. We have the find availability option, and what this can do is this launches the schedule assistant to suggest when would be the best time to be able to book something in for. We're able to manually block time off on the calendar. So for instance, if we know that the technician has a specific time that they're going to take lunch, or they have a medical appointment possibly, we can block that time out in the calendar so that we know for that technician, so that we know that they are not available during that time period. And we have a map view, and the map view will show everything, all the locations for it, all the jobs, and we can drag and drop things between it. We also have additional functionality available. So we have the ability to rebook. This gives us the ability to move a booking to a different day and time, as well as assigning it to a different resource. And we can substitute the resource. What this does is this keeps the original booking at the booking at the original time, date and time, but it replaces the original resource that's associated with the booking with a different resource. Say, for instance, we've got Bob and Jim, who are field technicians, and something has been assigned to Bob and Bob calls in sick. What we can do is we are able to substitute Jim as the resource for it because Bob is unable to carry it out. And the system supports us and allows us to do it in it. Now, I've mentioned a couple of times about automating resource and automating scheduling. And this is referred to as resource scheduling optimization. And we have several use cases for it. Now, we can do it overnight scheduling, condition-based scheduling, simulation, so we can simulate how it's going to be and then move it around if we need to, etc. But overnight scheduling is probably the most common way of leveraging resource scheduling optimization to go ahead and optimize schedules. Typically, the optimization job is working with larger amounts of data. It's not just one or two jobs. We're talking about hundreds or possibly even thousands of work orders that need to go ahead and be scheduled in. For this reason, it's most effective to define schedules that will run the resource schedule optimization after normal business hours. So, for instance, an organization could create a nightly or even a weekly schedule based on what they want to optimize. Each scheduled job has an attached record scope that defines what resources, requirements, and or bookings to optimize. So it's got all the information there on the work orders and can then be picked up. And when the scheduled job is executed, so the system job for it, the resource scheduling optimization will go ahead and optimize all items within the scope. So it's not going to look at absolutely every single work order. What we do is we define the scope. So it could be looking for stuff for specific time frames or specific locations or specific types of customers. And it can then automatically go ahead and optimize it. So if we have a specialist unit to repair farm machinery, for instance, we don't want them to go out on generic jobs, but as well they could be traveling large distances because in order to go from farm to farm, and they would need specialist equipment with them. So we could look at something, all the work orders that are relating to farm equipment, we could then assign to the specific crew for it, the group of people, and we can then optimize them up to a week or 2 weeks in advance for it to look at all work orders in the system which fit those criteria, and then it populates our schedule board with the information. So as we can see, we've got an overnight scheduling example. When it runs at different times. It runs, to create a week schedule. It runs to create a nightly schedule for it, which is absolutely fine. And what does it resource? It resources different types of things based on the territory or based on the status of the work order, etc., and can then go ahead and schedule it. Now, something that we've touched on already is the concept of inventory, because if we think about it, we're going to have products and we're going to have equipment and, say, spare parts that we need to use for repairs and for servicing. So we need to understand inventory management. For basic inventory requirements, many organizations will utilize the inventory module that's included with Dynamics 365 Field Service. However, for more complex inventory and pricing requirements, Field Service is designed to integrate with ERP systems. For example, common example is integrating with Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management using a pre-built prospect to cash template. And the capabilities within Dynamics 365 Field Service around inventory includes things like warehousing, inventory adjustments and transfers, consuming and billing products during the work orders, purchasing, returns, and inventory journals. So we're now going to start taking a step through each of these just at a high level to be able to understand them. So if we take a look at warehouses and product inventory. So each warehouse, which is a physical location, will have an inventory level that can be monitored from within the warehouse record. So as we take a look at the record, we can see the quantity that is currently available, how much is on hand, which is separate to the quantity currently available, the amount of product on order, so how much product are we ordering in that we need to see. It's not yet been delivered to the warehouse, but we know that it's been ordered in. The current amount of product that's allocated to things like work orders. I could have 100 hoses 100 washing machine hoses in, but if I've got 30 of them already allocated out to specific work orders, I only have 70 that I'm able to use. I can't have 100 that I'm able to use, because otherwise the technicians who are going out on those work orders may not have it, and that's going to be a problem. We can also see the reorder point for the product, so we can specify that when the quantity of product goes down to a certain level, say 20 hoses, washing machine hoses are left, then we should order more. And we're able to see this across it, and we can see the inventory float through warehouses, so we can see what the starting quantity is, say at the beginning of the day. Then John, who's a field technician, comes in and takes various items, and then we can see what the ending quantity is at the end of the day. Now, a warehouse doesn't need to necessarily just be a physical actual warehouse. The warehouse could also be, for instance, the field technician's vans or trucks. Each of those could be a warehouse, especially if they have product that they're going to take with them. They're going to take with parts for the servicing and for the maintenance, so they would be considered a warehouse as well. Essentially, it's somewhere where we are storing it. It's not going to be a shipping box between places that moves between locations, but vans and trucks would be considered a warehouse for Dynamics 365 Field Service. Now, one thing about inventory is usually it's necessary at some point to carry out adjustments and transfers. So what we're doing is we're going to do if we've got a warehouse, we've got items in the warehouse, and we're going to go into it and we're going to see and say, oh, hold on a moment, actually, the roof leaked in this part and it's corroded some of the items. So instead of 100 taps that we've got in place, actually 5 of them have problems with it. So we need to adjust the inventory. Now, an inventory adjustment allows them to adjust the quantity of products in a specific warehouse. Or we can turn around and say we're expecting a shipment of 50 sinks to come in, and the sinks come in, and then we realize, hold on a moment, they haven't delivered us 50 sinks, they've delivered us 75 sinks. So we can adjust it upwards. So it allows us to take inventory, take stock of what we have actually got, and reflect the actual true number of what there is, based on the conditions that we need to take into account. We also have the ability to transfer, and we can use this to be able to transfer product between one warehouse to another warehouse. So if I have a warehouse in the north and a warehouse in the south, and what I want to do is I want to move 20 washing machines from the north warehouse to the south warehouse, I can put an inventory transfer in, and what that will do is that will then, within the system, take the stock it will reduce the quantity in the north warehouse by 20, and it will add it to the south warehouse. Obviously, somebody needs to actually go and take those washing machines and transfer them physically across, but that's how the system would deal with it. Now, we mentioned about obviously stock going low, and then we need to create orders to order new product. And this is there to replenish our stock level. So what we're able to do is we're able to have a purchase order. So purchase orders allow us to request products from the vendors by creating it and adding the products to it. We then obviously need to submit the purchase order for approval to order it, and then when the products actually come in, we need to have a receipt of it by creating a purchase order receipt. Again, if the manufacturer is saying that they're going to ship us 30 washing machines, but only 25 arrive, we would show on the receipt that we only received 25 of them. Now, we also may need to handle returns. Sometimes a unit could be faulty, for instance. So we are able to create returns within the system. And there are 3 steps to doing this. We create an RMA, which is a Return Merchandise Authorization. All returns have to be initiated with RMAs. It designates the product to be returned and all of the other important information such as pricing. It also specifies the processing action, which is the type of return. We then would create an RMA receipt. The return isn't finalized until the receipt is created, that we have actually received it back. It confirms we have received the product and what the product was and the quantity of it, as well as the date and the person who's handling the receipt. And finally, inventory and customer asset adjustments are carried out, and these adjustments are done automatically in the background. So we can handle ordering items, we can handle items being returned to us. I mentioned about customer assets previously, and we have asset management capabilities. So what we can do is, if we're installing equipment at equipment at a customer, we're able to log these and store these records as assets. And this allows us to be able to have essentially an inventory, not of our own products specifically, because those are within our warehouse, but see what does the customer have at their site. So the customer calls up and says they've got this, we can go, we can double check, and we can say, yep, we have that. They give us a serial number, for instance, and we could pull up all the information relating to that serial number off our system. This in turn allows us to be able to create work orders against specific assets, and we can track it against it. We know where the asset is located. Obviously, if the customers move the asset around, that could present a problem and a challenge, but hopefully they haven't done so. And it allows us as well to be able to interact with and monitor IoT devices when we have connected field service in place. So we spoke about connected customer service earlier, and if we now take a look at connected field service, we have IoT devices that are there. They can report anomalies, they can send alerts, it can then go ahead and create work orders based off that automatically. And the key benefits of this is to reduce the downtime by having the devices to diagnose problems before customers are aware of an issue or before issues get to be serious. It allows us to address the issues faster by able to monitor them and keeping customers updated with it. And device data and service maintenance data can help make intelligent decisions around dispatching technicians with the right expertise, availability, and proximity to the job. Again, it's about scheduling in the right people to handle it, but we can see the situation developing before it's getting to a point whereby it's going to cause major problems and possibly cause the customer downtime or whatever the product is to stop working for the customer and the customer is unhappy. It allows us to be able to get into that. So this is what connected field service is for. So with that, we've now come to the end of module 4, which is around Dynamics 365 for field service. Thank you and have a lovely day.
Thanks for sharing all the great information. I hope our participants will really benefit from it. Don't forget to join us for the third and last part of this session series of exam prep on Microsoft Dynamics 365 Fundamentals, Customer Engagement Apps, CRM, MB 910. We'll see you in the next part of this training. Bye!